Good morning, gentlemen. Allow me to start with a simple question. What actually happens when attackers do not break into a system by force, but instead they just walk in like any other normal user? Well, I am Ahmad Ali, and today is 14th of July 2026, and we are going to discuss about the 2024 Snowflake customer account breaches, which took place mainly between May and June of 2024. Since this incident did not involve a software vulnerability, no CVE number was assigned. I choose this topic because it shows one of the most important lessons in cybersecurity. Sometimes the biggest breaches are not caused by advanced exploits, but by weak authentication and poor security practices. That makes this incident directly connected to the topics we studied in this course, including authentication, access control, cloud security, and incident response. Now let's move to the question why I choose this topic. So, I choose this incident for a few reasons. First, it is very recent, so it feels highly relevant to the real world right now. Secondly, unlike many famous cyber attacks, this did not depend on malware being installed inside Snowflake or an account flaw in the platform itself. Instead, the attacker used valid credentials that already had been stolen somewhere else. Third, it highlights something that is easy to overlook. Identity security matters just as much as software security. A strong system can still be compromised if the wrong person gets access to a real username and password. And finally, the incident connects several important ideas from the course, including multi-factor authentication, cloud computing, defense in depth, and importance of monitoring access carefully. Now, before we talk about the breaches, let us first understand what Snowflake actually is. So, Snowflake is a cloud-based data platform that organizations use to store, process, and analyze huge amount of data. Instead of keeping everything on their own physical servers, companies just upload their databases into Snowflake's cloud environment. Snowflake runs on major cloud providers such as Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud Platform. A lot of large organizations rely on Snowflake because it is scalable, fast, and convenient for managing large data sets in one place. During this campaign, several well-known companies, including Ticketmaster, Santander, and Advance Auto Parts, were lately reported as being affected. Okay, now let's walk through the timeline. So in April 2024, cybersecurity company Mandiant began investigating suspicious activities involving Snowflake customer environments. During May, investigators realized that multiple organizations were being compromised in a similar way. By June 2024, Mandiant publicly attributed the activity to a financially motivated threat group known as UNC5537. In total, around 165 organizations were identified as potentially affected. So this was not just one isolated attack, it was a coordinated campaign that unfolded over several weeks and targeted many different victims. Here we are, and this is where the story becomes really interesting. The attack did not begin with Snowflake itself. It began much earlier when employees at some organizations were affected with Infostealer malware. That malware quietly collected saved usernames, passwords, browser cookies, and authentication tokens without the user noticing anything unusual. Those stolen credentials were then sold on underground cybercrime marketplaces, like the dark web. The, the attackers bought those credentials and used them to try logging into Snowflake customer accounts. Because many organizations had not enabled multi-factor authentications, the attackers were able to sign in only using a valid username and just a password. Once inside, they accessed customer databases, downloaded sensitive information, and later attempted to extort the affected organizations. So the key point here is this: the attackers did not need to break Snowflake, they simply abused legitimate credentials. Well, now here we are encountering this major question that why did this attack even succeed? While there are several reasons behind that, we would only discuss three major reasons here. The first one was lack of multi-factor authentication, and without MFA, a username and a password were enough to get in. The second one was stolen credentials. In several cases, those passwords had been compromised a year earlier through Infostealer malware, but they were never changed. And the third was weak access control. Some organizations did not use protections like IP control list or other restrictions that could have just blocked the suspicious logins. When you put all those weaknesses together, the result is clear. The attackers were able to authenticate successfully without exploiting any sort of vulnerabilities at all. Now let's discuss some of the terms and the key technologies that were used in this incident. Starting from authentication, authentication is a process of verifying that a user is really who they claim to be before granting them access. Moving to cloud computing, which allows organizations to store and process data on remote infrastructure instead of local servers. Moving to the malware, which was Infostealer malware, and it is designed to silently collect sensitive information such as passwords, browser cookies, and session tokens. Multi-factor authentication adds an extra layer of verification beyond just the password, which makes stolen credential much less useful to attackers. Understanding these concepts helps explain both how the attack worked and how it could have been prevented. Now we are moving to the interesting part, which is why was no CVE number assigned? A CVE is used when there is publicly disclosed software vulnerability. In this case, investigators found no evidence that Snowflake software had been exploited. Instead, the attackers logged in using valid customer credentials. That is an important lesson because it shows that identity can become the weakest link even when the software itself is very secured. So this incident reminds us that cybersecurity is not only about patching vulnerabilities, it is also about protecting digital identities and controlling access properly. After all this, let us have a glance upon the impacts of this campaign, which were quite serious. Many organizations experienced unauthorized access to sensitive information. Millions of records were found as exposed across multiple victims. The consequences included financial losses, reputational damage, and legal investigations. Rather than destroying systems, the attackers focused on stealing valuable data and using it for extortion. This shows us how dangerous credential theft can be, even when no software vulnerability is involved. What we are getting from this breach is that how can we prevent and what are the recommendations to avoid such attack in the future. So organizations should really think about multi-factor authentications for all users, especially those who can access sensitive information. They should enforce strong password policies, monitor authentication logs, use IP allow list where appropriate, and continuously watch for leaked credentials. Employees should use password managers, avoid reusing passwords, keep their devices updated, and stay alert to malware and phishing links. The main idea is that security works best when multiple layers are in place. No single control is enough on its own. Now, after all the losses and after the damage is already done, let us think about what lessons we learned from this incident. To conclude, the Snowflake customer account breaches shows us that modern cyber attacks do not always depend on sophisticated hacking techniques. Identity has become one of the most valuable targets for attackers. Strong authentication, mandatory multi-factor authentication, continuous monitoring, and defense in depth are essential for protecting cloud environments. And perhaps the biggest lesson of all this is that even the most secure platform cannot protect an account if attackers already have valid credentials. Thank you so much. This was it for today. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I would be happy to answer any questions. Until next time.